Chapter 4, Chance Meetings. Saturday. We're about a week out from Samhain. Saturday was cold but sunny. I woke up early because Allie was coming over to set up her wards or whatever since she was going to be super busy the weekend of Halloween. I was still feeling a bit iffy about the hair changing thing, but I couldn't stay holed up in my room forever. When I went downstairs, I was greeted by a huge breakfast. Mom was apparently convinced that I was getting sick. Probably because I spent last night hiding in my room, refusing to interact with anyone. I was so paranoid that the glamour spell, which I still had no idea how I was doing, would falter, that I couldn't make myself leave even for dinner. When faced with a possibly ill teenager, Mom's only recourse had always been to make waffles. And eggs. And bacon. But mostly lots and lots of waffles. Man, I wish I had your mom. My mom always just fed me chicken soup. Chicken soup and ginger ale. Waffles, eggs, and bacon. Heck yeah. She seemed pleased that I ate without argument. Allie showed up right as I was finishing breakfast.
It's so good to see you again, Allie. You need to stop by more often. This is my first time seeing you since we moved back.
Sorry I haven't really stopped by. I've been pretty busy.
I understand. But next time you pick Nora up, you should really stop in for a few minutes.
I'll try it if we have time. I usually have to be at school a little early, though.
I understand, but I'd love it if you pop in to say hi.
She shot me a teasing smile.
Unless riding to school with Danny becomes a regular occurrence.
Mom, stop it! I pushed her toward the family room. It was a one-time thing. Don't get your hopes up. She just laughed in my distress as she retreated to the family room. Just as Spencer came down the front stairs and tried to pass us by on the way to the kitchen. Hey, your girlfriend's here.
Are you really going to just walk past without saying hi?
Spencer looked like he'd just been caught red-handed at something terrible. His expression was actually sort of amusing. Hello. Allie, in typical Allie fashion, punched him on the arm as a greeting.
Does that mumble even count as a hello? You know, you used to like talking to me.
It's not that I don't like it. Allie smirked at him and sidled along next to him. He tried to back away, but didn't get far. Oh my. The shade of red his face turned was pretty funny. Watching her flirt with him, while disturbing, was also more entertaining than I expected. I felt like I should go grab some popcorn.
Then say it like you mean it.
Spencer let out a long, frustrated sigh. You're a pain, you know that? You've always been a pain. She just grinned playfully.
You know you love it.
That was probably the first time I'd seen him smile in a really long time. It felt like a little knife twisted in my gut. Allie could get him to smile, but I couldn't even get him to talk to me. Oof, et tu, Brute. I wouldn't say I love the fact that you're a pain.
Can't help it, especially since you've always been so fun to tease. Not much of a conversationalist anymore, though.
It had been forever since I had been able to tease Spencer or just talk to him like a normal person the way Allie could. I wanted things to be the way they used to be. Maybe with Allie here to referee. I mean, she did offer to referee. He might stick around. It's hard, because I gotta remember with these roots, I'm not only trying to romance the boy, I'm also trying to repair the relationship between Spencer and Nora, because if I don't, there's a high chance he'll just, put a pillow over her face in the night, or trip her into a bathtub, or something. So, we have to, no, I'm not gonna reload. I'm just gonna go with my gut. Hiya.
So, do I have to actually beg for you to get my contact info and text me sometime?
I can give it to you. I mean, if you really want it.
I should have just asked you from the start.
You know he only has 3 contacts in his phone.
3?
Me, Mom, and Dad.
We must bump it up to 4.
You can't just give my number out to anyone you want.
Not even to me? Please.
He glared at me, and I raised my eyebrows at him, waiting to see if he'd snap at me in front of Allie. If you want my number, ask me for it.
Can I have your number?
I draped my arm around her shoulders and smirked at him. Yes, Spencer, can she? You are pains. Both of you. Ugh. He pulled out his phone and opened his contact screen before handing it to Allie. I'm just being a good sister. Just put your number in and I'll text you. Well, he hadn't really snapped at me so far. Not like he usually did. I should quit while I was ahead. Good call. Okay, that didn't go too bad. I'm heading up. Come up whenever you're done. I shot Spencer a tentative smile as I started upstairs. To my surprise, rather than scowling at me, he just rolled his eyes. I will take this progress. That was actually a huge improvement from usual. Allie made her way upstairs a short while later, still grinning like an idiot as she came through the door. Oh, is that the expression on her face? She dropped her bag on the floor near my bed and flopped down.
So...
Ew. That is all I'm saying. Just... ew. Allie rolled her eyes in response to my teasing grin, just as I expected.
I know. He's your brother. It's gross. Get over it.
I flopped backwards, pulling a pillow over my face. It really is just me that he's weird with. He was totally normal with you. Mostly.
You guys will eventually work it out. He went through a lot back then.
I rolled over, hugging the pillow to me. I know, but it's not like I didn't go through a lot too.
I know that.
I sat up and shoved the pillow onto her face, not wanting to dwell on unpleasant things. I was doing too much dwelling and moping lately. Everything kept making me think about the past, and all that was doing was making me depressed. I didn't want to be sad anymore. So you were going to do wards or barriers or something?
Yeah, I should probably get to it too. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Oh? You have plans for this afternoon?
Nope, you do.
I do? I don't think I do. Do I?
Well, I wasn't supposed to tell you, but Danny wanted to surprise you with a...
She grinned playfully as she paused. A what?
A date!
Wait, what? What?
I think Danny just wants to take you out to get your mind off everything. Well, and because he obviously likes you. I think he feels really, really bad about yesterday.
He doesn't have to feel bad about that. Did she just say he likes me?
But you were upset, so I think he wanted to surprise you with something nice. But since I also suspect you're all surprised out, I figured I'd give you a heads up.
That's kind of nice of you, actually. Thanks. My mind slowly wrapped around what she just said. I was going on a date. With Danny. I jumped off my bed, flailing my hands slightly. Wait, where? When? Suddenly, all I could think about was what I would wear if I had enough time to get ready, and if I'd look like I was trying too hard if I actually did dress up. Oh my god, I was so glad Allie told me about it. I could only imagine him showing up and me looking like, well, a complete mess like I did now. Allie, of course, laughed at my distress.
Relax! I'm pretty sure he's not going to show up until after lunch, so you have a good 3 hours to fret about it.
I so couldn't afford to be worrying about a boy right now when the rest of my life was going to pieces. Focus. Have to focus. I sneaked a look at Allie, who looked way too pleased with herself.
So you do like him, right?
Let's go. I'd been trying to avoid this conversation, if only because I'd been trying desperately to not think about it myself. But as much as I said I shouldn't be worrying about boys, I really wanted to be worrying about Danny and dates. I think I do. I mean, he's really nice, and he's really...
Yes?
muscly. Allie just laughed.
Yes he is.
I mean, he's really good looking, but mostly he's just nice. And he makes me laugh. And he's sweet, and I flopped back onto my bed and dragged the pillow back over my face. I totally like him. Allie pulled the pillow off me and bopped me lightly on the forehead.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But I have so many other things to worry about.
If people put off relationships just because they have other things to worry about, no one would ever actually have relationships in the first place. There is always something else to worry about.
It's additional stress I don't need.
It doesn't have to be stressful.
I know that, but it's a bit much right now, that's all.
Gotta live in the moment.
At this point, I'm just trying to make it through the moment alive.
Anyway, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
It's not that I don't want to talk about it. It's just that the more I do, the more confused I feel. I'd rather just try to go with the flow. If I talk about it too much, I'm going to start overanalyzing, and that never ends well for me.
That's fair enough, I suppose.
So... these ward things are just like barriers, right?
I love the way you try to just change the subject on me.
Well, I was hoping you'd let me get away with it. She shook her head.
Fine, just this once. And yes, the ward things are just barriers. Well, the ones I want to set up anyway. But there are lots of ways to do wards.
Oh, really, wise teacher? She rolled her eyes as we settled back onto the bed.
Yes, really. For instance, one way is to just put up some kind of symbol that keeps negative things away. That method is used by normal people all the time.
You mean like good luck charms and things like that? Those things actually work?
Not all the time, but some do some of the time. It kind of depends on the ward and what it is. But symbol wards are pretty weak to begin with. A church gargoyle may keep some things at bay, but anything that really wants to get past that will just walk right by it. Plus, a lot of symbols only work on specific creatures, so you might put up something that keeps out ghosts, but isn't going to save you from anything else that wants in.
I guess that makes sense. So basically, a lot of the old wives' tales sorts of things have at least some truth to them.
Of course they do! I mean, things like that don't spring up out of nowhere. It's just that degree of accuracy varies a bit. Anyway, I'll teach you more about it after Halloween and Samhain. Warding magic is pretty essential for any cryptic that doesn't have much physical strength. But what I really want to show you is how to do barriers.
Which are different than wards?
Barriers are just a specific type of ward, and even then it breaks down into active and passive barriers. And it can actually break further into physical and energy barriers.
It sounds so complicated. I feel like I was sitting through some kind of class with a really energetic professor. I wonder if they actually have magic schools. I wouldn't be surprised. I felt a bit cheated I didn't get carted off on a magic train to attend classes in some cool old castle. Yeah, I think we all do. Instead, I just got my best friend lecturing me in my bedroom.
Hey! Are you listening?
Yes, I'm listening. You were saying there are different types of barriers.
Yes. And for your house specifically, I intend to set up an invisible magic barrier that will keep out anything with bad intentions. One that will stay in place for a few days, then dissipate on its own.
She pulled out a notebook and started scribbling in it. I leaned over to watch her, draw. Bad intentions is kind of vague.
In this sense, it means anything that intends physical harm. So if something wanted to come in and just yell at you a bit, it would probably make it through. If it intends to physically hurt you, it'll be stopped.
She ripped the page out of the notebook with a flourish and held it up for me to see. It was, presumably, a drawing illustrating how magic barriers work. I raised an eyebrow. The little goblin demons. Oh, so good.
Basically, it's like this. As long as you're inside the barrier, you're safe. Normal people won't be able to see it, but you'll be able to faintly tell where it is so you can make sure you stay inside it.
That's an interesting diagram.
Hey, not everyone is good at art like you, okay?
I can see that. What exactly are those things trying to kill me? Why do they have 4 ears? Those are horns, Nora. She peered down at the notebook, frowning slightly. See, me and Allie have similar drawing styles, so I'm like, those are obviously horns.
Those are horns. Horns! Because they're evil things that want to hurt you.
And why is one descending upon the house from the sky? Am I going to be subjected to demonic air raids now?
You are clearly missing the point.
She bopped me on the forehead with the notebook.
Focus!
Fine, I get it. Magic barriers keep things out. Got it.
Good. Because I'm also going to teach you a quick, easy barrier spell today.
You are?
I don't think you'll need it, but...
She laughed when she saw my eager expression.
I figured you'd really like to learn one today.
Yes, definitely. The thought of learning to do something besides panicking and being helpless was definitely appealing. We're learning this early too, hooray!
But first I want to put the wards on your house.
So how do we do that? I nudged the bag she'd brought in. Do we use something in there?
Nah, I can do it without any of that stuff. I do have something I want to give you later, though. Something that might help keep you in your room at night.
Something else I was definitely looking forward to.
For the barriers, we need to go outside.
She put her notebook away and stood, shouldering her bag as she grinned at me.
Put on some good hiking shoes because we're going to take a walk through the woods so I can teach you the other one away from prying eyes.
I expected Mom to sound the alarms and start flashing sirens the moment I said I wanted to go for a walk in the woods with Allie. I guess that having a responsible chaperone made her feel secure in the fact that I would be returned in a reasonable time frame. Sort of.
So you'll be back soon?
Oh, I don't think we'll be gone for more than an hour. We won't go far. I just want to get some fresh air, and it's been forever since we've gone hiking together.
Well, I guess it's okay. But please be careful. Shane said he'd seen evidence of a bobcat.
We'll keep an eye out for it.
Okay.
She watched us anxiously from the window as we went outside, and I pretended to show Allie around the yard. I showed her the fairy ring, which she thought was an interesting coincidence given my situation. She also cautioned me very strongly about it, and suggested that after Samhain we try to find a way to dissolve it without infuriating the brownie. I didn't think it was necessary, but she pointed out that fairy rings can be dangerous to mortals, which basically meant the rest of my family. Not to mention the fact that the brownie would have a fit if Dad tried to mow over it. She thought there might be a way to safely locate it to a nearby spot outside our yard. Then, trying to find a slightly hidden spot for her to cast her barrier spell, I showed her our bird feeder. I'm sure she found that particularly riveting. But it was a good place to set up the barrier, so she did that there. She didn't use a wand or do anything really spectacular. There was a sort of gentle wind and a strange sort of ripple in the air. Nothing that my observant mother would notice. It seemed awfully easy for her to cast a barrier that apparently went around my entire house. I wondered if she was just really talented or if barriers in general were easy. And soon enough we were trekking through the woods down a narrow trail that had probably been scratched out over time by deer and elk. I pushed through the mossy ferns, wondering why I couldn't have sleepwalked my way down this trail instead of off into the middle of nowhere the other night. It would have been so much easier to find the way back. So why exactly are we hiking through the forest right now anyway? You cast that barrier right where Mom could see you and she didn't notice a thing.
It's pretty easy to be a bit stealthy with that spell. Not so much for the one I'm going to show you. It's not some static barrier like the one I put up around your house.
And we couldn't do it in my room?
Not unless you wanted to break something. And probably get a lot of attention from your family.
That sounded kind of ominous, to be honest. And just how far were we going into the woods? She'd said that it wouldn't be far, but we'd been walking for a while. What exactly are you teaching me?
It's a defensive spell, something a little different from a normal barrier. At the same time the barrier goes up, it releases a rush of wind that will knock back anything coming towards you. So, say a crazed Spriggan is lumbering at you. This spell would not only impede its path, but also push it away and put some distance between you.
And why is something like this needed? I'm not complaining, mind you, just curious.
Here's a good spot.
She pushed through some sparse weeds and stepped into a small clearing. We'd definitely gone far enough out of sight and earshot of the houses that we didn't have to worry about being seen, that was certain. Hopefully we wouldn't come across any other hikers. Allie turned to face me, dropping her bag as she took a breath.
Okay, let me ask this first. What do you think is the difference between an active and passive barrier?
I remember this from Corvin's route, but I can't quite remember. I think both of the others. I'll do the bottom one. A passive barrier will stay up on its own, like the one you put on the house. I mean, I assume. I'm kind of guessing here.
Ding, ding, ding! You're correct! Passive barriers stay up on their own after they're cast. Active barriers require the caster to actively focus on keeping them up. That comes with its own pros and cons. But in the end, each type of barrier has certain situations that it's good for.
Okay, but why is that important?
Because I'm about to teach you how to create an active barrier. A passive barrier will shatter immediately if attacked by a strong enough force. If you throw a marshmallow at a window, it'll just bounce off, right? But if you throw a rock, the rock goes straight through. So that's one of the weaknesses of a passive barrier. But an active barrier can survive really strong attacks, as long as your willpower is stronger than the attacker. That means they're capable of withstanding a tremendous amount of force in the right situation.
Sounds pretty impressive.
It can be, but the drawback is that maintaining a barrier under the force of repeated attacks wears down stamina really fast. It makes you physically and mentally exhausted pretty quickly.
I sincerely hope I never am in a situation where I'm dealing with repeated attacks.
Same. But a lot of people take self-defense classes even though they hope they never encounter a mugger or stalker. It's just good to be prepared, right? And in this world, sometimes we encounter things a lot worse than a thug with a knife. The reason I want to teach you this particular barrier is because being able to knock back your attacker can sometimes buy you enough time to get away. It has the added advantage of possibly disabling them too.
Is there really a lot of fighting and attacking in the paranormal community?
Unfortunately, it can be dangerous, yeah. There aren't a lot of laws governing interspecies relations, except in regards to treatment of humans in normal society.
So I've heard.
It's not like you can just call the police if some cryptic decides to harass you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to show you the basics today. We can start practicing during club time after Samhain, though. Now, usually you'll want to speak a command when you cast a barrier. You don't have to, but especially since you're a newbie, a command will give you a higher chance at successfully casting the magic. The word you say doesn't really matter either, but the firmer a mental image of the barrier it conjures, the better the barrier will be. So the important thing is to pick a command that strikes a chord for you. To start with, you should probably just say something like barrier, or shield, or even appear.
She stood a few feet from me and took a breath, facing off to one side. Sweeping her arm out in front of her, she drew a straight line through the air. As her arm moved, a blast of wind streaked across the ground in front of her, throwing twigs and leaves into the air. It slammed into a tree with enough force to knock a flurry of leaves from the branches. If I looked carefully, I could almost see the air in front of her shimmering slightly.
In addition to knocking your attacker back, this will set up a barrier directly in front of you. You can create different shapes, but I think we should start with just a straight barrier in front of you, like an invisible wall.
She dropped her arm and turned to me. I knew my eyes had to be really wide because she grinned as soon as she saw my face.
Now you try.
To be honest, I wasn't sure about trying magic, and frankly, I felt silly as I walked to where she'd been standing. I took a deep breath as she had done. What does it feel like to use magic? Everyone kept saying I had magic energy, but I couldn't tell. I felt like I always had. Closing my eyes, I tried to mentally search for some kind of inner spark or light or flame or anything that felt magical.
Just take your time. Focus.
That's what I'm trying to do. I swept my arm through the air as Allie had done. Barrier! Nothing happened. Well then. Suddenly, my entire body went cold and a blast of freezing air came howling out from my feet. It hurled itself at the tree, sending a blizzard of leaves showering down on me and Allie. The rush of air almost sounded like a voice. Or laughter. I stared. I knew I was wide-eyed this time. Allie looked equally surprised as she gawked at the tree than at me. She suddenly burst out laughing.
You are totally covered in leaves.
Pfft, have a look at yourself. You look like you're thinking of giving up on high school and becoming a tree. She picked a few leaves out of her hair and grinned at me.
Well, that was a resounding success. I'm impressed.
I have no idea how I did that.
We'll keep practicing until you feel more confident, but at least now you'll be able to defend yourself a bit.
No more practice today?
Well, I'd like to practice more, though we should probably get you back so you can de-leaf yourself before Danny shows up.
I felt a tingle of butterflies as she reminded me of my apparent surprise date. Suddenly, Allie was standing next to me, wrapping her arms around me tightly.
I'm just so glad that I can share this kind of thing with you. I can't really talk to my parents about it since I don't know if they... Well, I can't really talk to them. They've never said anything, and it's hard to try to find a way to ask if they know why I have magic. And outside the club, none of my other friends are part of all this.
She squeezed me tightly and released me. There were tears shining in her eyes, and she rubbed at them hastily, laughing slightly.
Sorry. I am just really, really happy.
I hugged her gently, for the first time realizing how lonely she'd probably been. I'm glad I have you to help me through this. We were both giggly and a little teary the entire walk back to the backyard. Aw, best friends. Before she left, Allie pressed a small bag into my hands. What's this?
Well, a potential solution to your nighttime escapades. One has an herb that is a fairy bane, something that acts as a ward to keep fairies out.
Okay. read about that today. Nope. Nope. Oops. Ah, there we go. Fairies seem to either love plants or hate them. Fairy banes are plants fairies absolutely hate. Because of this, they can be used as a protection against them. One of the most common is St. John's wort, which has been used since ancient times for a variety of medicinal purposes. It's even still used to treat certain things like some types of depression. A fairy bane? I never even considered that something like that would even work on me. But what are we keeping me out of?
Nothing, but I kinda conferred with a friend of mine over it. We thought if you sprinkled it in your doorway before bed, it might keep you in. It won't actually hurt you, but from what I read, it causes a burning sensation if fairies come into contact with it. At the very least, hopefully it'll wake you up. Just make sure you're careful when handling it. The other jar has things that will counteract the stuff in the first jar. Bluebells, thyme, and other fairy plants. You can use it in the mornings to dispel the other one. I wrote down some instructions for you and labeled the jars for you.
Thanks.
I just hope it works.
At this point, I'm willing to try anything. She gave me a quick hug and fled my room with a grin.
I'll leave you to get ready. I know the way out.
She just wants to find Spencer to flirt more before she leaves. I shut the door and leaned against it, looking down at the little bag in my hand. I really hoped it worked. But for now, shower. I put the bag she'd given me in my bedside table and went to, as Allie put it, de-leaf.